set up. Maybe that's okay. So I hope everyone's enjoying their time with friends and family, because this is what the spirit of the season really is about. It's about coming together, hopefully not appeasing and out of that obligatory old materialistic sense. One of the things I love about the holidays personally is the reconnecting, the coming together. It shouldn't be in the spirit of food and gifts and just the presence, the presence of your essence, not the presence of the giving. It's the giving of your time, your energy, your being. Looking at the other and recognizing them as you. Showing your authentic, vulnerable, courageous heart and soul. Because that's what is you as a whole. Like, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And to reawaken to the truth of who we are, it means peeling away all these layers. It means coming to terms with what we've been told and realigning with what we feel versus what we think. Really confronting and challenging belief systems. Because all these belief systems that we have right now are based on what we've been told. And whatever we've been told is being told by man. So we really have to dive deep in within our heart's integrity and our knowing, our gnosis. Something that is intangible. In a world where everything seems to need to be proven as real or true, which is the biggest farce, it's the fleecing, the spell casting, the idea that we need to prove ourselves worthy. We need to prove ourselves, period. I always talk about when we're born. We are born with original sin. We're told that we're not worthy in so many different ways, so many forms, so many lies, that you are born perfect, in God's image, perfectly whole. You have all the answers and everything you need within. But there's this situation where we come into the world and man is trying to play God with a small g. Man is trying to get others to worship ideologies that don't align. And to really tap into our authenticity and integrity of ourselves, we have to really peel away all these layers. Because everything we're told from the moment we're born is coming from man's mouth. And it's so true. The truth comes from the mouth of babes. That when we're young, we're babies, we're children, up until the ages of 6 or 7, we are the closest to source. We are the most pure in our essence. We still have that connection, that thread to God, source, prana, life force. It is what we all strive and seek. We become adults and we forgot that that was where we were at, that we came in with all that knowledge, that gnosis, that awareness. And as we become adults, all of a sudden we're just grasping at the seams, seeking out something, when the common thread in man is that we are constantly seeking ourselves. And to be ourselves means to stop going without. The way to go through it is to go into it. So instead of going without, you have to go within. All the truth and all the answers that you seek, everything outside of you is just noise and distraction, keeping you from the internal voices of your heart and soul's calling, your knowing. That is your truth. That is your identity. That is your Satnam, as we say. That when you think from the head, you have to tap into the heart. It really is this alignment between the mind, the body, the spirit, which is the breath, and your soul. That is the true Holy Trinity, if we really want to discuss that. Of course, isn't that really, that is the ultimate discussion, is around the Holy Trinity, the gnosis of mind, body, soul connection. It's actually the mind, the body, the spirit, or the breath that makes you align to your soul. When those three are in harmony, when they are connected and they are working together, as opposed to competing and conflicting, because a lot of times people are so disconnected from their bodies, they're out of their minds. It's irony at its finest, and that is the divine comedy of this life. So if you're not tapped into your body, you're out of your mind. There's one of the disconnects, because the body is always telling on the mind. It is the biggest tattletale. It is the truth indicator. The body always registers what's out of alignment and doesn't ring true to your heart and soul. So the body will tell you the lies before the mind can wrap its own self around it, because from the same level of thinking that you created the belief systems, you can't solve your way out of it. That's where the body wisdom comes in. It's called somatic, soma. The sum of your mind is stored in your body. That is the body wisdom. Soma, in sum, it has to be felt into. That the way to heal yourself is to feel into it. Doesn't matter how painful or juicy or yummy or icky, it's all the same. It's your thinking around it that makes it that much more challenging. Your resistance to it that makes it persist even more. That what you anticipate, you create. If you are constantly in the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, chronic stress, the sympathetic nervous system constantly go, 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 fight, 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 it's time to tap into the parasympathetic nervous system, stimulating the vagus nerve, which needs to be strengthened and toned. That when we stick the tongue out, which is the tip of the Shushmana, the tongue, when you stick it out, you stimulate the 10th cranial nerve. And when you do that, it naturally softens and creates that parasympathetic response. It puts you in a yin, a feminine, the nurturing, the rest and digest state. Whereas when you're in the sympathetic, you're in those cortisol and inflammation. It's the adrenaline. It's the, I need to act like this. I need to be on response. We have to be able to switch between the two. If we are constantly in the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn sympathetic nervous system, we're going to burn out. We're going to degenerate. We're going to age. We're going to be exhausted. But when you're able to allow your body to go into those states when necessary, not all the time, and not keeping it straight, then you can bounce back over the parasympathetic nervous system. So let's try this, because this is my favorite breathing exercise, and I did do a little short video about it. If you can make a taco tongue with your mouth, with your tongue, curling your tongue, you want to extend it out between the lips pursed. And it's nice if you can stick it out as much as you can, because again, the more you can stick your tongue out, you're stimulating that 10th cranial nerve. So you're going to inhale through the curled tongue like you're sipping through a straw, long, slow, and deep. We're not rushing this. And then you're going to exhale out your nose. Now, if you cannot curl your tongue, you're just going to keep your tongue flat. And again, you can stick it outside of your mouth. And you're going to breathe long, slow, and deep, again, as if you were sipping through a straw, even if you're unable to curl your tongue. So let's try this together. Sticking the tongue out, you're going to inhale long, slow, and deep through the curled tongue. Exhale out the nose. Close your eyes down. Just go within and just get into the sensation, the feelings, and really tap into how this affects you. Stick out the tongue, begin with long, slow, deep breathing. Soften the face, soften the jaw, soften the sides of the neck, making sure that your ears are over your shoulders, shoulders over your hips. Don't let your head come forward. Tilt it in just slightly, but keep it parallel to the floor. Make this your last one. Now inhale through both nostrils, suspend the breath. Press the tongue to the roof of the mouth, elongate through the crown of the head, pull the root log, the anus, sex organs, and navel point, draw that energy up the spine. Inhale a little bit more if you need to. Exhale, release. Maintain this posture, eyes closed. Focus at the third eye point. Just observe yourself. Do you notice your state? Is it more calm? How is your mind, thoughts? Are you holding tension anywhere in your body? Scan, observe. What is arising? And then inhale together. Exhale, release, slowly opening your eyes. Sitali Pranayam is very healing, deeply healing. You can do it for as long as you feel you need it, but just notice how it shifts your state, shifts your focus, your awareness. If you're experiencing extreme pain in your body, this is a great healing breath exercise to send the prana to those areas, to soften, to release and relax in those areas. Because a lot of times when we have pain, we actually tense up even more, creating additional pain to the pain that we may already be experiencing. Or even better yet, if you are someone who struggles with chronic pain, when you anticipate pain, you actually create it even more than if it arrived on its own, because we go into a resistance tension mode. And when we do this, we're creating the pain itself. So what you anticipate, you create. With the breath, you can release and relax. It will bring you back into that parasympathetic nervous system, because in the parasympathetic nervous system, that is where your body rests, it digests, it regenerates, it recuperates, it heals, it restores. That is what we want to be in when we're not needing to take immediate action in our lives. When we are in the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, then we are experiencing all of those hormones of stress. And that's what causes inflammation if it is elongated past its necessary state. See, we need stress. Stress is neither good nor bad. It is just necessary to make change. Because stress is when we have to take action or respond. Stress is simply your body going into a state of about to, needing to take action or having to respond to a situation. But our minds in this modern era are conditioned and wired to think that things that are not immediate life-threatening situations are conditions for stress, are conditions to react. You know, traumas that come up from the past, re-experiencing that pain is what creates those stress hormones to be released. And we don't always recognize it because sometimes we're just in that automatic response. And so the more we do breathing exercises, anything that stimulates the vagus nerve to strengthen it, to tone it, because it's all about a muscle, right? Everything needs to be exercised for it to be strengthened, lengthened, supportive, because you can't have a muscle that doesn't operate and function perfectly without keeping it resilient, keeping it strong. We are responsible for maintaining this temple, this body, to support our heart and soul. This is what we're here to do. We're here to keep them balanced in the harmony, as within, so without. When you are experiencing all sorts of trauma around you, all sorts of stress, it's because there's a reflection of whatever else is going on within you that you're not addressing. So we can say things are going on around us. We can look around and go, oh, look at that. But it's always a reflection of what's going on within ourselves. And it takes a whole lot of humility and accountability to tap into, oh, that's within me. And that's why it's being reflected outside of me. As within, so without. If you don't go within, you go without. So just because you notice it on the outside doesn't mean you noticed it on the inside. A lot of times people are denying it. They're rejecting what's going on within and not realizing it shows up outside of them because they're not paying attention to the internals. Just like in other videos I've discussed, if you're not actively doing the healing work within yourself, your little inner child is going to call in a third party and act it out in your external world. If you don't work on the internal, it will attract the energy necessary to heal it on the external. Again, always be mindful. This is what it's about. The more you are in awareness of what's going on within, you don't get caught off guard outside of yourself. Nobody can trick you up or trip you up, because when you own what's in you, it won't own you outside of you. It's a lot easier to manipulate and control a person who is acting out of their emotions, which is the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. It's easier to harvest that energy. People, entities feed upon that. So it behooves you to do the work to heal yourself and to not play into the role of a victim, because the more you empower yourself, the more you are in your authenticity. Stop denying what is truly within you in favor of what is appealing outside of you, because all that is a distraction to keep you out of here and out there. So these are just some of the things that I'm sitting with, that I'm feeling in the collective, that it's very easy for us to get tripped up, caught off our guard, when we're not actually tuned in and tapped into what's going on within us. these are the holidays, and the holidays are when people are the most emotional. It is when people are not even aware that they are being triggered by old traumas, because this is the time of the year where everybody's nostalgic. Everybody's thinking about their childhood and how, oh, you know, the holidays, this is what my family has always done. And maybe because you're at a certain age, there's a melancholy sensation that arises, like this, you know, the sadness, the deep sadness of the people that are no longer with you, or maybe some traumatic event happened during the holidays in your life. And so instead of celebrating, we're commiserating. So what is meant to be a celebratory time turns into this miserable time. And whether a person is conscious or unconscious of this, that's important, because if you're conscious of it, then you won't let it catch you off your guard. But if you're unconscious and you're not really taking stock of what's going on within you, then it's going to be easier for you to be disempowered by it. It will power over you. So we can have all sorts of memories or issues, you know, our issues are in our tissues because everything is in our physical body. We store memory in every cell of our being. It's not just here. You may not remember some of your old past traumas. You may not remember everything in a mental sense, but your body remembers it. And sometimes that's the part that gets people the most tripped up, because you're reaching for food because you going into a mood. You don't even know what influenced the mood. Something, a song, a word, a picture, something conjured up in you. And when the memory conjured up in you, it wasn't fully conscious, but your body felt it. And then all of a sudden, unconsciously, you're reaching for certain types of food, comfort foods, to soothe the mood. But in reality, the food reinforces the mood. It's all psychological. But if you're not tuned in and tapped into it, then it will be running the show. That's the old programming. That's what's going on behind the scenes. We've all got something like that going on in our lives. It doesn't make you better or worse. It's all about whether or not you're willing to lean in, to confront it, and really take back your personal power. Don't let it rule over you. You need to learn what's running your show so that it isn't ruling over you. So you need to master your life through mastering your breath, being an awareness of your mind so you can master your mind. Because once you know the operating system in your mind, what goes on behind the scenes when you're not paying attention, when you sit in mindfulness, meditation, single-minded focus, and then you see, oh, that's the stuff that goes on when I'm not paying attention. Once you're in awareness of your mind, you can master your mind. You can change it up. You can become more conscious and active, participating and confronting and challenging what goes on in your mind. Then from there, you can master your life, because you have to master your mind to truly master your life, instead of allowing your mind to master you. Would you rather be the slave or the master? That is the question that every one of us needs to consider. Authenticity is when you are in alignment, mind, body, and soul, and spirit, with your integrity, your soul, your heart and soul's purpose. They are intertwined. You can't deny it. You can try, you can resist it, but it will persist. And it will continually try to put you back on the path, whether you're conscious of it or not. There is no right or wrong, and just because you think, oh, I made a mistake here or there, doesn't mean you're not still on your path. We get deviated along the way in our lives. I know I've been deviated off my path a few times. People have distracted me, taken me out of my peace, or I should say, I have allowed them to take me out of my peace. But see, that's always a choice. And again, look in that mirror and look at yourself and say, you're clever. You're choosing to feel this way. And at any moment, you can choose to change the way you're feeling. So, I posted just recently about opinions, because I am who I am. And it's taken me a lot of years to recognize all the times people have told me, you need to be this way, you need to be that way. That was more about their comfort than it was about me and my comfort and my authenticity. See, everybody's got opinions, and you know what opinions are like. They're like assholes. Everyone's got one, and they all stink in their own little way. So we need to stop thinking that just because you have an opinion that it's necessary to voice it, especially because most people aren't kind about their opinions. They're just acting from those old childhood wounds and traumas of, I want to be heard, I want to be seen, and I don't care what it takes to get me that attention. A lot of people doing that. And they use their opinions to give themselves importance. Think about that one for a second. I feel important because I have voiced my opinion. But your opinion doesn't make it true. And it doesn't make you better than anyone else. In a lot of ways, your opinion can make you look like just like that, an asshole. So trust in your heart and soul and always ask yourself, is it kind? Is it necessary? And who or what is my opinion going to truly serve? Because a lot of times it's just serving the ego. And I tell you what, it's the ego that gets you into trouble, and then the heart has to come in and fix the problems that the head really got you into. So the heart's always doing the cleanup. So you can say you think you got your heart broken in some point in your life. It wasn't your heart that was broken. It was your ego. Your ego got stomped on, and your body felt the misalignment. So it feels like it's in your heart. It feels like your body. But the body's just saying, that doesn't resonate. That's untrue. It's just you getting caught up in your need to be right versus right here is where you want to feel happy. Because that's what life's about. Choosing happiness over the need to be right. So authenticity is not allowing people's opinions to also sway or influence you. Staying true to who you are and recognizing that person's opinion is none of your business. They're going to continue to have their opinions, and you're going to continue to have yours. It's judgment, it's opinion, it's the same thing. And all it truly is when you compare yourself. Because an opinion is, I don't like that because that's not what I would do. So you're comparing yourself to another person. And the biggest worry that people have and fear is the being judged. So the people who give their opinions most of the times don't even realize they're giving their opinions to avoid the rejection of their own selves by another. And if someone is so quick to judge, it's because they don't want to be judged. It's a distraction. So when someone's judging, it is never about you. It is always about their insecurities and their fears spilling out. Because they're so filled with them, there's no place else for them to go. And they're not confronting them within, so they're spilling out all over everyone. And that's where life gets messy. Because when we start projectile vomiting our opinions, asshole speak, then we create a huge mess around us. And that's not authenticity, and that's not integrity. But you must be accountable for your choice to participate in unhealthy, toxic behavior. So even if you make a mistake and you're projectile vomiting your opinion all over the place, you have to be accountable to your words and what you say. Not to other people, but to yourself. Because you have to be right with you in the end. At the end of the day, it's up to you being good with you. And we have all said things we didn't mean, and then we were like, ooh, that didn't feel so good. Ooh, I wish I could take that back. You know, it's nice to say I'm sorry to the other person, which is normally not something that should even be needed, but ultimately, you gotta feel good with you. You gotta feel true within you. If we run around just spouting off opinions and nasty comments without any regard for anybody else, especially ourselves, we create big messes that we have to go back and clean up after. That's why accountability and integrity and authenticity and taking personal responsibility is so important. Somehow things have been flipped upside down and people don't want to be accountable to their behaviors or their choices. But only you are responsible for you. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what someone says about you, thinks of you, as long as you're good with you. Because again, all they're telling you by talking to you in a way that is tearing you down, because we're supposed to be uplifting each other. When someone tears you down, they're just projecting how they feel about themselves. Because again, they're comparing themselves to you to even have or form an opinion of you in your life. Don't let another person's opinion influence or sway you from being true to you. Nobody should have to apologize for who they are. Not everybody has to like you. Not everybody has to get along, but you can also choose to walk away. Choose your peace over being right. Choose your happiness over your ego's need to prove itself. Don't you think we've been running around trying to prove ourselves for far too long, when in the truth of the life that we are living is all about seeking our path of happiness, our joy, to go where we're treated best as opposed to all these places that are rejecting us? Why do we do that to ourselves? Place ourselves in situations where we're fighting to be seen, to be accepted, to be heard. And the truth is again, you look in the mirror, that you're the only one who should feel accepting of yourself. You're the only one who has to live with you. And so go places where you feel you are uplifted and supported. Don't go to places where they tear you down or try to rip you to shreds. Nobody deserves that. You deserve better. And you're the one who gets to choose where you place yourself. And where you place yourself matters all the time. So even during the holidays, sometimes family is the toughest. Sometimes you can't be at your best. So even if you can't be at your best, zip it. And then, this is the way I was raised, if you don't have anything kind to say, don't say anything at all. Why not be the observer and just witness? See through a person's pain by recognizing that no matter what they say, it's a reflection of what's inside of them. And so when you can see that in another person and you become the observer instead of having to be the talker over, because there's a lot of that, a lot of people talking, not a lot of substance. Listen between the words. Listen to what's not being said. Look at the body language. Become more of a people watcher, a nurturer, somebody who's more compassionate for what's not being spoken. Because when people are judging other people, it's just showing their pain. And hurt people hurt people. So why not be the healed person that supports and heals people? Again, you have to be good with you first, because if you're not good with you, it's going to be that much harder to be good with other people. But the more you work on you, you do it for others too. So no matter what anybody's opinion is of you, prove them wrong. Prove them wrong. Don't be predictable, because that's what karma does, is it perpetuates a cycle. Karma is when you continue to behave the same way you've always behaved, and without changing, we already know what you're going to do. And that in itself is the triggering, the trauma response, is the sympathetic nervous system. When you can become the witness, breathe into your body, feel all the sensations, slow down, be present, allow yourself the rest and digest of the parasympathetic nervous system. Because the more you stay in that calm, yin, feminine energy, the more you'll affect the people around you and in the room. And that's what it's really about. That when you are the lighthouse, you demonstrate as a leader that you're not going to fall into the trap of the old patterns. Then others will be tripped up. And this is the key. When you behave differently than you have in the past, that's dharma. That's canceling out the karma. Because when you do things the same way over and over again, that's the karmic cycle. But when you change it up, it throws others off their guard. They're expecting and anticipating you to behave a certain way. And when you act differently, now they don't know how to respond because that affects their karmic cycle. So when you act differently, you're energetically tripping them out of their pattern. And then they have to like catch themselves in a, wait a minute here, Jedi mind trick. Now what? I'm not used to that. You set off a new pattern when you change your pattern. When you no longer continue to perpetuate the same routines and behaviors, you have now introduced a change to the cycle. Honor that. The more you do it, you create more resilience. And again, when we change patterns, we change lives. It only takes one person. It only takes one time for people to go, whoa, what did you just do there? Something changed. You're different. You ever heard all those little comments? You did something with your hair. What are you doing that's different? I want some of that. You inspire through inspired living. When you no longer fall into the traps, others are forced out of the trap. And that's a beautiful, beautiful gift to give, especially during the holidays. No matter what you're going through, there's always an excuse for kindness because kindness matters. Your mindset matters. So why not be in an attitude of gratitude, show up with compassion, courage from the heart, an open hand, widespread arms for a hug, because that is the heart space. When you expose yourself fully in your courage and your vulnerability, you're giving other people permission to do the same. When you change things up, you're forcing others to change as well. And you may not realize it at the time because you might not even be cognizant. You may not even be aware that you did something different than you have in the past. And when you make one little shift and adjustment, it's the dominoes in effect. They're set in motion. And just like the waves of the ocean rippling, gotta go with the flow, baby. Trust it. Trust that. That's what it's all about. So, I pulled out the cards because I haven't played with cards in a little bit. And I have two of my favorite decks. One of them is the Oracle of E. These are the Pamela Grout Oracle deck. And I think these are just absolutely gorgeous. I think they came out with a second deck too. This is one of my favorites. And I don't know, let's see. I don't have anything in particular. I like to just kind of like pick up on the collective vibe and see whatever pops out. Anybody ready for brand spanking new? And it's the number 9, which is the number of spirituality, spiritual life path. Brand spanking new. Let's see what it says. You know how it feels after fresh rain? Everything is pure, clean, washed to its precious, beautiful core. You just want to stick your nose in the air and take a big whiff. That's your life right now. There is not one blemish, not one flaw. It's a perfect 10. Can you give yourself permission to live the life that you've always wished and wanted? That's what being in authenticity and aligned with your integrity is all about. When you're accountable to you, life shows up just for you. Now, Notes from the Universe on Love and Connection by Mike Dooley. These are another favorite deck. These are whimsical too. So, cards are fun. Anybody can read them. Anybody can open up a book, pull a hook 'em, and get a message. It's all about just doing it. You don't even have to have a question. It might just be something you need to read for the day. Get in the habit of doing that. Just randomly pulling out a card, pulling out a book, opening it up to some page. And just like I was just talking about, it's not only about being right. In all tests of character, when two viewpoints are pitted against each other, in the final analysis, the one thing that will strike you the most is not what was right or wrong, strong or weak, wise or foolish, but who went to the greater length in considering the other's perspective. Don't you agree? Love the universe. So once again, who's going to be the better person? Who's going to rise up above the ego? Who's going to stay centered in their heart? When it boils down to it, it isn't about being right, but whoever is willing to be humble. That's the better person. That's the higher power. And when you do that, again, you give other people permission to stand in their personal power. I liken it to, when you are in more awareness of something, and it's tough because when you're a leader, when you're someone who's that much more attuned and tapped into yourself, and it can get frustrating, but that's part of the work. That's part of the patience factor. And I experience it regularly. I've experienced it most of my life, that I get frustrated, that why is it I'm the one who has to see things that other people are unwilling to see? And it has been struggling. Like just a great example. When you're driving your car, there's 3 lanes and someone pulls out in front of you. The fact that you were there, you were sent as an angel to overlook and watch out for the other and yourself. The fact that they pulled out was not about them cutting you off as much as God putting you there to protect them and make sure that they didn't get in an accident. When you shift that perspective, you shift that way of looking at it, then you realize, oh my gosh, I am the better person. I am the more aware, awake person in the moment. And if it wasn't for you, that person might have been in an accident. If it wasn't for you, you might have been in an accident. So always see it from another side. This is the duality of life, the polarities. You can see it from the negative and you can see it from the positive, but there is still a neutral way. It's the middle way. Either pulling you to the left or the right is taking you out of the balance. When you feel like, oh, they did this to me, or oh, it's taking you out of that balance of harmony. And again, you need to truly come back to the center, the grounding, and the neutral middle way. Nobody's ever doing anything to you. It's your perception around it. It is your attachment to the being right versus the recognizing, oh, this isn't even about me. You always get to choose if you make it or take it personally. See, people, because they come from emotional stances, caught up in the head, will make things personal. They'll take it personally, when in reality it has nothing to do with them. But that's because they're so caught up in themselves. And they're not taking care of themselves. So they expect others to do it for them because they're not taking personal responsibility. So again, another fun book, Osho, Book of Secrets. Da, da, da. This is one of my favorite books, and it's ripe with information, and some of Osho's teachings are just so profound, and they're not always easy for everyone to follow, but hey, have an open mind. You can find interpretation in anything. Whatever you need, there it is. All right, so let's see. Questions. Are not freedom and surrender contradictory? So the first question that was asked, and this is page 845, I just randomly opened up. You say that religion is total freedom or moksha. And you also stress the importance of surrender in religion, but are not freedom and surrender contradictory terms? They appear contradictory, but they are not. And they appear so because of the language. Existentially, they are not. Try to understand 2 things. First, you cannot be free remaining as you are because you are, is your bondage. Your ego is your bondage. You can be free only when this ego point disappears. This ego point is the bondage. When there is no ego, you become one with existence. And only that oneness can be freedom. While you exist separately, this separation is false. Really, you are not separate. You cannot be. You are part of existence, and not a mechanical part, but an organic part. You cannot exist for a single moment separated from existence. You breathe it every moment. It breathes you every moment. You live in a cosmic whole. Your ego gives you a false feeling of separate existence. Because of that false feeling, you start fighting existence. When you fight, you are in the bondage. When you fight, you are bound to be defeated. Because the part cannot win against the whole. And because of this fight with the whole, you feel in bondage everywhere limited. Wherever you move, a wall comes. That wall is nowhere in existence. It moves with your ego. It is part of your separate feeling. Then you struggle against existence. In that struggle, you will be defeated constantly. In that defeat, you will feel bondage, limitation. By surrender, it is meant that you surrender the ego. You surrender the separating wall. You become one. That is reality. So whatsoever you are surrendering is just a dream, a concept, a false notion. You are not surrendering reality. You are just surrendering a false attitude. The moment you surrender this false attitude, you become one with existence. Then there is no conflict. And if there is no conflict, you have no limitation. Therefore, nowhere there comes a bondage, a boundary. You are not separate. You cannot be defeated because there is no one to be defeated. You cannot die because there is no one to die. You cannot be in misery because there is no one to be in misery. The moment you surrender the ego, the whole nonsense is surrendered. Misery, bondage, dukkha, hell is surrendered. You become one with existence. The oneness is freedom. Separation is bondage. Oneness is freedom. Not that you become free. Remember this. You are no more. So it is not that you become free. You are no more. Really, when you are not, freedom is. How to express it is a problem. When you are not freedom, Buddha is reported to have said, you are not going to be in bliss. When you are not, the bliss is. You are not going to be liberated. You are going to be liberated from yourself. So freedom is not freedom of the ego. Freedom is freedom from the ego. And if you can understand this, the freedom is freedom from the ego, then surrender and freedom become the same. Then they mean the same. But if you take the ego as the standpoint from which to think, then the ego will say, why surrender? Because if you surrender, then you cannot be free. Showing the difference in where the ego is the duality. Choosing this or that is the trap. That is what this is discussing. Because if you surrender, then you cannot be free. Then you become a slave. When you surrender, you become a slave. It's a paradox. But really, you are not surrendering to someone. This is the second point to be understood. You are not surrendering to someone. You are simply surrendering. There is no one who will take your surrender. If there is someone and you surrender to them, then it is a sort of slavery. Really, there is not even a God to whom you are surrendering. And when we talk about a God, that is just to find you something to help you surrender. In Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, God is talking about just to help you to surrender. There is no God. Patanjali says there is no God, but it will be difficult for you to surrender to no one. It will be difficult for you to simply surrender. To help surrender, God is talked about. So God is just a method. This is rare, very scientific. God is just a method to help you surrender. There is no one who is going to take your surrender. If there is someone and you surrender, then it is slavery, a bondage. This is a very subtle and deep point here. There is no God as a person. God is just a way, a method, a technique. Patanjali relates many techniques. One of them is Ishvara Pranayam, the idea of God. There are many methods to reach surrender. One method is the idea of God. That will help your mind to surrender, because if I say surrender, you will ask to whom. If I say simply surrender, it will be difficult for you to conceive. Try to understand in a different way. If I say to you simply love, you will ask whom. What do you mean by simply love? If there is no one to be loved, how to love? If I say pray, then you will ask to whom? Worship whom? Your mind cannot conceive of non-duality. It will ask, it will raise the question, to whom? Just help your mind so that the mind's question is satisfied. Patanjali says that God is just a way, a technique. Worship, love, surrender, to whom? Patanjali says to God, because if you surrender, then you will come to know that there is no God. Or you yourself are that to which you have surrendered. But this will happen when you have surrendered. God is just a trick. It is said that even to surrender to a God who is nowhere seen, who is invisible, it is difficult, so scriptures say. Surrender to the guru, to the master. The master is visible in a person. So then the question becomes relevant. If you surrender to a master, then it is a slavery. Because a person is there and you are surrendering to him. But then too, you will have to understand, again, a very subtle point, even more subtle than the notion of God. A master is a master only when he is not. If he is, then he is not a master. A master becomes a master only when he is not. He has achieved non-being. There is no one. If someone is sitting here in this chair, then there is no master. Then it is going to become a slavery. But if there is no one sitting in this chair, a non-being, one who is not centered anywhere, one who has surrendered, not to anyone, but simply surrendered and achieved non-being, has become a non-person who is simply there, not concentrated in an ego, who is simply there, not concentrated in an ego, diffused, not concentrated anywhere, then he can become a master. So when you are surrendering to a master, again, you are surrendering to nobody. This is a deep question for you. When you are surrendering, if you can understand that this is simply surrendering, not a surrender, surrendering, not a surrendering. A surrender is to someone. A surrendering is something on your part. So the basic thing is surrendering the act, not the object. The object should not be important, but the one who is surrendering is important. The object is just an excuse, just an excuse. If you can understand that there is no need to surrender to anyone, you can simply surrender. Then there is no need to love someone. You can simply love. You are significant, not the object. If the object is significant, you will create a bondage out of it. So even a God who is not will become a bondage. Even a master who is not will become a bondage. But the bondage is created by you. It is a misunderstanding. Otherwise, surrendering is freedom. These are not contradictory. So imagine the complications we create because we need a focus, the this or the that, the duality, the trap, that God has to be used to trick people to surrender, but not to the God, to actually be in surrender, not to anything. It's just the letting go and the non-attachment. That's a lot, and that's pretty deep, and that's a really good reading. The next question that's asked here is, while this is this, also includes this is that, and that is Brahma, how is it that the sutra emphasizes only this is this? Again, this is about duality. And duality is the trap that keeps us set so back, stuck in our ways. This idea that we have to choose, which means we reject. That which you choose means you reject something in the contrary, the adversary, the opposite. When you choose that, you reject that. But most of us don't think like that, because that would mean we'd have to be accountable to not just our selection, but our rejection. So many of us don't want to be rejected, abandoned, but we do it all the time to ourselves. So the surrendering, is the ego letting go. It's the dropping into the heart and feeling, as opposed to taking, selecting, choosing, rejecting. The heart knows the truth. And there's no this or that in your heart. So, I hope you enjoyed tonight's transmission and discussion. Please watch it again. Let me know what you think in the comments. I always love to hear what everyone has to say. Also, make sure, if you enjoyed these videos, to select the subscribe and click the notifications bell, and make sure that you are set to see my notifications when I go live or I post videos. I enjoy doing this. This is what lights my heart up. I love to share, and I hope I can serve you on your journey and your path to letting go and lightening up. Life is too short. We're here to live in joy. And I want to see you bright light and spreading yourself. Much love, many blessings. Mwah! So good to see you. We got a lot of work to do, but the biggest and most important work we do is within us. Have a lovely evening. Stay well and blessed.